Hey, I'm Boki, and this is Bopin with 2000's Tuning. Back in the day, having your car featured inside a magazine or DVD is probably one of the coolest things you could ever achieve. Sure, winning prizes at car shows is probably redeeming too, but think about it. Imagine you're going into a supermarket to check for the new Super Street magazine issue, and you see your car on the cover. However, there's something that may just top that feeling. There's a crazy amount of cars which were featured in games, and sometimes their owner were included as well. Today I'll show you some of them, so let's get started. Despite the fact that his car unfortunately isn't actually featured in the game, it's the closest example I've got for a privately owned car landing on a game's cover. Dustin Worlds' Mazda MX-6 was chosen for the cover of Midnight Club Street Racing because Rockstar was looking for a very Japanese-styled car to be put on the cover. I could tell you all about the story and whereabouts of the car right here, but honestly, you should just watch Dustin talk about the story himself in WinWiki's Zero to Hero video. But besides Dustin's MX-6, there were more cars involved in the game's cover and intro movie. On the cover alongside the banana, there's a Supra from one of Dustin's friends, Trung Ma. I unfortunately couldn't find out much about his car, but I did find this yellow one that matches Trung's car a lot. It was for sale somewhere on the East Coast around the mid-2010s if I remember right. And as for the cars featured in the game's intro, Dustin brought along his brother Daniel with his MR2, and Ali Farzad, another one of Dustin's friends, with his Golf 3 GTI. Ali's car is the least known one in the intro, as it only appears very briefly and can't be seen clearly. But despite that, Ali and everyone else was still credited in the game's manual. So, where are the cars today? Dustin still owns the MX-6, and he plans to get it back on the road in 2020 for the Midnight Club Street Racing anniversary. But as we all know, something happened which cancelled just about everybody's plans all at once. I'm sure we know exactly what I mean. I'm sure that he will still try to get it back on the road eventually though. Daniel's red MR2 was repainted orange and got sponsored by Bomex, who provided him with a body kit. One day, unfortunately, he totaled the car and bought himself another MR2, this time a blue turbo MR2 from one of his friends. Dustin and Daniel kept the wreck of the original car. The blue one is currently being restored and will hopefully be driving again soon. Lastly, for Ali's GTI, his car was unfortunately stolen and hasn't resurfaced. He moved on to a Lexus GS and some other cars after. Racing Lagoon was a RPG racing game, truly a one of its kind. It's an obscure game developed by Squaresoft and released in 1999, which recently received a fan-made English translation as it was a Japanese exclusive. Featured inside the game is a car known as the Monster R, or later as the Lagoon R, a blue R33 Skyline GTR built by Move Tuning Factory. Move was a tuner known for specializing in Skylines and also for working on cars from teams such as the Midnight Club. Their mottos are over 200 miles per hour and fast, cheap, and unbreakable. The story of the shop is a gigantic rabbit hole that I won't get into. At least not in this video. So let's return to the story of the R33. The Monster R was owned by Manabu Yamada, better known as Gaku. He was a longtime customer that turned into the general director of Move. The Skyline was his personal car that was also used as the shop's primary demo car. It also used to once be the fastest GTR of Japan, with the official record of 319.94 km per hour set in 1997 at Yatabe Circuit. Gaku was contacted by Squaresoft to turn the Monster R into a demo car for an upcoming video game expo, the Tokyo Game Show. The connection between Move and Squaresoft started here. Square has presented Gaku the concept of the game. He was amazed by it and agreed to their offer. The creation of the Lagoon R had almost no restrictions. The only thing Squaresoft wanted was a drivable car. And with a good 800 horsepower under the hood, it was more than just drivable. Gaku and the Move team got to work, and when they were finished, instead of putting it on a trailer, they drove it straight to Makuhari Messe in Tokyo and back. For the following I couldn't get a clear confirmation for, but Gaku seems to have also been working with Square as a technical advisor. The job of a technical advisor is to give advice to the developers about the technicalities featured inside the game, which are cars and tuning in this case. Move is the only tuner which is featured inside Racing Lagoon, and the book I got my information from also doesn't show any other shops being involved with the development of the game. Anyway, what happened to the car? Gaku stated that he would not be able to put a price on the Monster R. In other words, he would never sell it. He wanted to surpass the Skyline's old speed record actually one day, but unfortunately before that could happen, the car has been totaled in 2001 at Fuji Speedway during an event. The Tokyo Xtreme Racer series is no stranger to including real cars, but how about real people? The intro of the 5th game in the series already shows you some prominent cars featured within the game. But before I get started, I need to give you some context about the game's Wanderer faction. The special cars are all Wanderers. They're independent drivers that you challenge in the game if you meet certain requirements. Those can be something simple like this rival only drives on Fridays, all the way to turn on your hazard lights in a specific area and drive into walls. Nobuteru Taniguchi and his personal S15 Sylvia appeared in several of the TXR games. Taniguchi, also known as No One Better, is a professional race car driver from Japan who started out in grassroots drifting. He raced for HKS in the D1GP, but also in the JGTC. The requirement to race him is for you to challenge him with a stock car. Nob used to own the car for a little over 2 decades until he recently sold it. His S15 started out as a research and development car for K-Office, and was originally yellow. After it found its way into Taniguchi's hands, he got the car repainted in Toyota's Super Red 5, put Advan wheels on it, and got a body kit by Vertex. He allegedly used it as a daily driver for a short time until he felt like the car was simply too nice for that. Being a HKS test driver allowed him to get a lot of support by the company, so his S15 only got the best parts they had to offer. The car made its rounds on Japanese car auctions recently and got bought by Colton from Redline Restorations for just under $60,000. Up next is Manabu Orido's Supra. Orido is a professional racing driver as well, and raced in events such as One Make Championships, all the way to Super GT, and even entering the 24 Hours of Le Mans. Similar to the story of Moves Gaku, Orido was a technical advisor for Genki to make the in-game experience as authentic as possible. His car in the game is his personal Redux Supra that was built to be a comfortable but fun street car. In order for you to challenge him, you must defeat 3 rivals in a row on the Wangan in Osaka. Orido's blue Supra in real life is pretty interesting. While Orido has owned a couple of Supras, the one we're talking about has been with him since he bought it presumably in 1998. It was Royal Sapphire Pearl until late 2003. The car was presented at Tokyo Auto Salon 2004, with it then being red and staying that way until somewhere around 2008. Over those 4 years, the car had slightly changed here and there, including a sponsorship with Eclipse, a car audio company that also sponsored the Super GT team he was driving for. Later in 2008, the car got repainted in dark blue. Skip forward to 2012, the car was repainted red for the second and last time. The license plate also got updated from 1055 to 559. The reason I mention it is because it was a pain to find out if Orido still owned the same car or not, and the thing that helped me out the most so far was the license plate staying the same for the longest time. But interestingly, the license plate also has a meaning, as you can see him mention on this post he made on Instagram. Shinichi Kobayashi also makes an appearance. He's the founder of Matchless Crowd Racing, a tuning shop that's been around since 1994, which has its roots in Shutoku racing. MCR's most known car is the Mao R34, Mao meaning Demon King. However, that car is different from the car that's featured in TXR3. The requirement to challenge him is very straightforward. In order to race him, you must beat a time of 4 minutes and 5 seconds on the C1 Outer Loop route in time attack mode. Kobayashi, also known as Bancho, used to frequent the C1 when he was younger, and knowing his history with street racing, as the proclaimed fastest driver on the C1, I wondered if the time set was real or made up by Genki. It is being speculated that the real time he set was between 4 minutes and 10 seconds and 4 minutes and 30 seconds, which is still pretty fast regardless. For comparison, I tested a Z-Tune R34 GTR in Assetto Corsa, and it runs the loop at 4 minutes and 14 seconds, and that is without any traffic, but realistic road conditions. According to a RevSpeed magazine article from 1996, he has set a time of 4 minutes and 20 seconds with his white R33, but I can't find any source stating anything about a time the R34 set. The article is pretty cool on its own, however, as MCR met up with Autoselect's Eiichiro Sawa to test each other's cars. Sawa is similar to Bancho, street raced too, and supposedly was the fastest driver in Osaka. But now I'm going too off topic. Anyway, with the research I've done, and including various factors such as traffic, tire condition, speed traps, or brake heat, I don't doubt that the time of 405 is impossible, but it is insanely ballsy. Back to the R34. To keep it short, I will just tell you about the evolution of the car that's featured in the game. While I couldn't find out any deeper past about the car before 2001, I found out enough what happened during the years. In late 2001, the car found its way onto the Genki booth for Tokyo Game Show to promote TXR3. Kobayashi has kept the car and driven it for a few years until he sold it to a close friend of his somewhere around 2003 to 2004. Important to note is to understand MCR's window stickers. Each sticker color means something. A red sticker indicates that it's owned by the shop or Kobayashi directly. Blue means that a close relative to the shop partially owns the car, and white means that it's a customer car. You were able to purchase the white stickers as well. So with the sticker lore in mind, you can now more easily tell their cars apart. The close friend Bancho sold the car to was a guy named Takahiro Tanaka. He was part of the Mad Dog street racing team and has driven various cars for MCR. Tanaka also owned the red R33 GTR until 2009, when it was parted out together with Kobayashi. While telling the different red R34s apart is a pain in the ass, the main differences are various small details, such as the color of the sticker, indicators, license plate, and the engine bay. There were 2 new chassis made, which both were spot welded, but they all differ from the C1 car. So, where is it now? The last I found was a Speed Hunters article from 2013, where you can clearly see that the previously mentioned details all match up. The metadata of the photos, however, says that they are all from mid-2005. Considering that the R33 was parted out, as previously mentioned, there's a chance that the R34 might have been parted out as well. Also, whilst editing the video, I found out that the recolored versions of the R34 featured inside Kaido Battle 2 and 3's intros are real cars too. I can't tell you much about the white one, as there is barely any reliable information about that car. However, the blue one was a street car owned by someone by the name of Hoshi. Another wanderer with an interesting requirement is the founder of Junction Produce, Takahiro Taketomi. His company is one of the, if not biggest, VIP shops in Japan. While there are other shops that do VIP stuff, Junction has always had a classy and elegant design language compared to most VIP automakers. His requirement is to drive to this area in Osaka and just honk your horn for a while, and then he will show up and challenge you. Well, I said the requirements can be very random, and this is probably a very good example. Anyway, Takatomi's car in the game is a UCF-30 Celsior fitted with one of his body kits. However, I couldn't find evidence about that specific car being real. They made high-end body kits for all kinds of Celsiors, but due to most junction-kitted cars looking very similar to each other, there's no way of knowing if he had one just like this at the time. Now onto the Gambalas. Gambala was a top-level Porsche tuner that started back in 1981. The founder Uwe and his son Mark are both featured in the game. Mark drives the GTR 500 whilst Uwe is inside a GTR 750. The GTR 500 is a twin-turbocharged 986 Boxster making 500 horsepower, whilst the GTR 750 is a 996, which also has a twin-turbocharged Boxster making over 750 horsepower. It was, at its time, the most powerful Porsche-based car ever built. To battle them, you must defeat Mark by driving a British car. After you've done that, you unlock the battle with Uwe, and he wants you to drive a German car against him. Both the cars do exist in real life, however not as they are portrayed in the game. Gambala sold those models, so there are no privately owned real versions of either car. So what happened to the Gambalas? Whilst Uwe's story is somewhat known these days, in 2013 he was kidnapped and murdered for a money laundering deal that went wrong. And as for Mark, it gets a little confusing. He made his own company, named after himself in 2018, which is not associated with the old Gambala. And I'll be honest, I cannot be bothered to look deeper into this, at least for this video. There's a couple of magazine project cars featured in the game too. One is Drift Samurai, also known as Takahiro Imamura, from Drift Tengoku magazine. He's a beloved character in the magazines with his signature car, a pink A31 Zafiro with a white two-tone. In order to challenge him, you need to have a certain sticker on your car, and only then he will accept your battle request. The real Zafiro unfortunately doesn't exist anymore, as the real car was crushed on October 27, 2006. It had a long life as Imamura's drift car, entering competitions and getting used to its limits. However, the reason the car was scrapped wasn't due to racing damage. Instead, it was because its gas tank caught on fire at an event. After that, it was decided to scrap the car, as the car couldn't pass inspections anymore due to the damage. And while there's more magazine cars featured inside the game, such as Option 2 or VIP style, I've been talking long enough about TXR3 alone. So I'll finish this segment off with the young version RX-7. The rival is known as 100,000 km Rotary, and his requirement for you is to challenge him with a car that has a total mileage under 2,000 kilometers. And just by his rival name, the real car is exactly what you expect. A high mileage FD RX-7, which around the time of the game's release saw a lot of circuit use, involving time attacking Tsukuba circuit with a time of 1 minute and 3 seconds. The only information I have about it is featured in this article, where they are strengthening the chassis as it is noticeably weakened. I'm not done with the Tokyo Extreme Racers series just yet, but let's take a small break by looking at some other cars. Yuichi Paul Yagashita was a game developer for EA Games and one of the guys that worked on Need for Speed Underground, Underground 2 and Most Wanted. At the time when Underground was developed, he owned a new Imola Orange Pearl APR GT300 widebody last generation Celica. His car was used for marketing purposes in the form of a Team Underground car. Team Underground was a made-up car team that consisted heavily of cars from Team Destruction 65, a car team that had a bunch of custom cars matching the style that the Underground games were aiming for. While the car was used for various promotional material for Underground 1, the car was changed up twice for Underground 2. Once for Tokyo Game Show in 2004 for EA's booth, and then after that was done, the car was wrapped matte black with Shadow vinyls. Yuichi's Celica ended up being used as the cover car for the Japanese release of Underground 2, also known as the Shadow edition. Shadow is a graphic designer from France who used to work for Art Factory Graphics in Japan to create various car graphics over several years. The car was also featured in the game, as you can see it on the splash screen, but since delivery of the black version is featured in the game and a widebody kit that looks similar to the APR GT300 widebody that he had, you can almost remake the car in the game. I don't know if Yagashita still owns the car or what happened with it, but what I do know is that the Celica was used to promote Mozilla Firefox and Dyson for whatever reason. The older Forza Motorsport games have featured a couple of real cars, but I would like to especially highlight the Abflug RX-7. And while its depiction isn't the most accurate one, it's still really cool for the car to find its way into Forza. Owned at the time by an Abflug mechanic and member of the Midnight Club, made the car both a street racing machine, but also a demo car for the company. It started out as the bold FD3S and got visually updated when Abflug created the GTM bodykit lineup. With the updated visuals, it was getting closer to the car we know as the Pink Spider. But it didn't stay like this for long. Soon the RX-7 would see changes such as the GTM rear wing getting modified with an adjustable center blade, new Abflug Grand Revolve Prism 2 wheels, and the GTM front bumper being changed with a new version CV model that features the car's facelift indicators. It has stayed more or less the same like that until it got sold. The car has changed hands in 2011 where it was about to receive its biggest change yet. The car was turned into a one-of-a-kind show car with custom-made headlights, a brand new widebody kit, 2 different set of Asanti wheels, different seats, and so much more. Here are the original concept edits created by Curve, a design studio closely related to Abflug, which has created several insane one-off creations over the past years. Today the car is still with its owner that bought it in 2011, whom you can find on Instagram under Keigo_ABFVale7. I'm sure nobody knew about this one yet. The most unusual case of a real car being featured in a game is about a cancelled game called Project Velocity, which was also known as Octane. The game got cancelled due to the studio, which was Vivendi Universal Games, shutting down. It was supposed to be a street racing game similar to the most games which were on the market at the same time, including a decently sized car list, customization, and an open world structure similar to Midnight Club. In 2007, a build of the game got found on a dev's kit hard drive, and sometime later, another build was found. I can't tell if they're the same build because researching this game wasn't exactly easy considering the generic working title of it, but what I can tell you is the following. The game's car list had several categories, ranging from just the normal cars to in-game team cars, but also a section dedicated to hot import nights. The category features a single car, which is Les Wong's RX-7 FD. I don't know if the game was supposed to involve hot import nights in the same way that Juice 2 did, or if there would have been something like the Gran Turismo Awards, where at a car show, some cars get chosen to eventually be featured in the game. As for Wong's car, it was a very uniquely modified RX-7, featuring some insanely rare parts, such as run rotary racing headlights, an Apex front bumper, and occasionally seen on Mazda Speed MS02 wheels. Another obscure game is World Super Police, also known as Rapid Riot Police in Japan. It was a 2005 budget PlayStation 2 game developed by Suzak and published by Jaleco in Japan and Midas in Europe. You play as the World Super Police and have to fight terrorism. Great explanation, I know. While the game itself can be considered as mediocre, it's funny how the car on the cover might be where most of the game's budget went. Featured on the cover is a render of an R34 Skyline that the studio decided to recreate in real life to promote their game. They called it the SPR. It was only modified from the outside and was a HR34 powered by an RB20DE mated to a 4-speed automatic on the inside. While I couldn't find out who was responsible for building the car, I learned that at the time Suzak owned the Skyline, it was non-roadworthy and only seemed to be driven in the credits video that plays after you've beaten the game. They dedicated a 3-minute-long short film to the car. The Skyline was exhibited at Tokyo Game Show in 2005, but they also went all out and decided to do a tour over Japan, visiting cities such as Tokyo, Hokkaido, Osaka, and Hiroshima. They ended up displaying the SPR in only 3 cities though. After that, the Skyline was donated to the Miniskirt Police, which was a late-night TV show featuring sexy girls in police uniforms. When I started researching all of the cars in this video, the last thing I expected to learn about is this. After the Miniskirt Police didn't have a use for the SPR anymore, they ended up selling it. Supposedly it changed hands a couple of times and was last seen on Yahoo Auctions in 2013. After it got sold again, the car somewhat vanished with rumors claiming that it was unfortunately scrapped. Returning to the last Tokyo Xtreme race for cars, let's start with the Genki S2000, featured in the Kaido Battle TXR spin-offs and Racing Battle C1 GP. Kaido President, also known as Hamagaki, is the leader of Kingdom 12, a team in the game's story. While he isn't insanely difficult in the first 2 games, in TXR Drift 2 it gets ridiculous. You have the additional stage set in Hokkaido. Nearly the entire track is set on gravel. Kaido President will battle you there if you got a total of 40 prizes, a bunch of money, and a car that can keep up with him. Why? Well, compared to the other games, the car is all-wheel drive and insanely fast. But what about the real car? Genki isn't only a game studio, but they also have a racing team called Genki Racing Project, and they did indeed make the S2000 real. The only problem is that it was very short-lived and barely anything is known about it. I remember someone telling me years ago how supposedly the team ran the car once and sold it after not doing too well in the event they participated in. It belonged to a Genki employee who sold it for unknown reasons. The person that bought it was the company's president. I got this information from the only valid source that exists on the car, which is inside the Kaido Battle Togen no Densetsu guidebook. Spec-wise, the car was very similar to the Amuse R1 Titan S2000, featuring their complete R1 Titan exhaust, ECU, dampers, brake calipers, carbon fiber trunk, hood and aero parts. The second to last car in the video, but also the last rival in TXR0's main story, is White Charisma. A custom FD RX-7 with an Aria Meme AC987 rear conversion, a 3-rotor, and mighty appearance makes for a good rival. But the interesting thing is that the car existed in real life too. Owned by Yoshiaki Shimada, the leader of the RX-7 team Resonance, his car was indeed a highway racer. You can even spot it very rarely inside option videos. However, the only big difference is that the real car was powered by a 13B instead of a 3-rotor. The developers recreated the car's smallest details, such as the roll cage's color being yellow, or recreating the unique mirrors which were Aria Memea FC mirrors made to fit the FD. The real car used to be blue until somewhere in 1999 when it was repainted white with silver stripes. The front bumper was also changed, but so was the rear wing and hood as well. I don't know what happened with the car, but I can imagine that he sold it since he ended up purchasing the Aria Memea Grady 8, while also owning another RX-7 which was always supposed to be heavily inspired by the Scoot Sports 327 FD. Now, what did he think of his car being included in the game? In this now deleted tweet, it seems like he hasn't been asked about his car being featured, which was shrugged off by Genki supposedly. While Yoshiaki did not seem to be happy about being indirectly featured in Zero, Uvabo Masamichi on the other side was happy about it. Abflug makes a full-on appearance with an entire team in the game dedicated to the company, so of course it makes sense to include the company's president and his 911 Turbo. Hell, the first thing you see when you boot up the game is the Abflug R34 demo car in the game's intro. even though it doesn't appear in the game directly. What I forgot to mention previously, however, is that in the Abflug street racing team, the names of the rivals in the Japanese version seem to all refer to real Abflug employees. Not only is obviously Uvabo a real person, but so is another rival. He just doesn't drive the correct car, funnily enough. And that would be Jun Noguchi, who was the first owner and original builder of the Pink Spider RX-7 that I talked about earlier. Another interesting thing that I forgot to mention is that TXR0 isn't the only game that Uvabo's 911 appears in. It is also featured inside a Japanese exclusive racing game from 1998 called Wangan Trial for the PlayStation 1. He's owned the car since it came out. Starting off as a regular red 911 Turbo, it had seen numerous changes over the years, from different aero and a high power engine to the car getting increasingly crazier and crazier. He has owned the car as of the making of this video for 34 years, from cutting the rear fender for a custom bench to turning it into a road legal race car, all the way to him still developing new parts for his car today. The passion he has for the platform is incredible. Uvabo currently works with today's Abflug, which is known as Mirage Auto Design. Did I say something about a last car? Well, the video isn't over yet. I still have some giveaway cars left to talk about. Giveaway cars back then were a somewhat common practice to promote upcoming games. While it has been proven that mall car giveaways were usually scams, as nobody ever won, the cars given away by game studios usually ended up in some lucky winner's hands. So let's start with the R34 GTR that was built to promote Need for Speed Underground. The car was built with the help of Craig Liberman and Neil Chin for EA Games to promote the game in North America. When I met Craig in person last year at the Essen Motor Show, I asked him directly about the car and how it was created. I unfortunately didn't record the conversation, but I still remember enough of it to mention it here. And since Craig made a video on the topic on his channel already, which I recommend you to watch, I won't mention every detail about the car. He told me that the car was imported with a temporary import bond due to the car's legality problem in the US. The car was a slightly modified white R34 GTR V-Spec on BBS LMs, and that very same car was used to be scanned for Need for Speed Underground. The initial deadline for the car to be finished was SEMA 2002, to which Craig's team and him had around 2 months of time to get the car to a presentable state. The car was sponsored by Magnaflow, which made a custom exhaust system, Bummix, who provided the body kit, Nitrous Express, Sparco, Kenwood, and many other companies. HRE wanted to sponsor the car too. Craig and Robert Hale, the project manager of HRE at the time, decided against it due to the 446s not being unique enough for another R34, so they set on Roha Formula 7s instead. The car was given away on MTV's TRL and was given to a 19-year-old girl that sold it right after. The car changed hands a couple of times until it landed in Australia out of all places. Next up is the Saleen S302 Xtreme that was commissioned by Rockstar Games to promote Midnight Club Los Angeles. The S302 Xtreme was a limited run S197 Mustang which was tuned by Saleen. The normal 300 horsepower naturally aspirated V8 the Mustang came with got supercharged, which got it up to 620 horsepower. Rockstar Games teamed up with Pizza Hut to get their hands on one of the S302s and remake it to the one featured on the game's cover. The modifications include 22-inch TIS wheels, the graphics and decals as seen on the game's car, a custom interior, and supposedly a sound system, making the car worth a total of $100,000 or a bit less than $150,000 today. In order to enter the giveaway, you were supposed to register yourself at the Pizza Hut website. The requirement for entering were that you had to have a valid driver's license, be 18 years old, but also to be a mainland American citizen as the car was given away in the lower 48 states exclusively. After the car was given away, it went to a car dealer in Arizona, where it was for sale somewhere in late 2008. After that, the car resurfaced many years later in England and lastly landed in France. Its current whereabouts are unknown. While the previous two cars were giveaway cars exclusive to the US, there were also a couple of giveaways happening over here in Europe. And one of them was tied to an event that revolved around the game Juiced, and that was the Juice Challenge. THQ and Acclaim made a couple of promotional cars to give away, such as a pair of RX-8s that were given away in the US, a Lancer Evo 8 for England, or a last generation Celica for Germany and Austria. For the Juice Challenge, THQ toured through Germany and Austria from the 12th of May until the 21st of August 2005. The event was a time attack competition where you had to have the fastest time on a circuit in the game. You were able to register and compete at the event locations they went to, which were MediaMarkt or Saturn electronic store chains for the most part. At the finale, the 6 fastest drivers had to battle it out at the Games Convention in Leipzig to win the car. The base car was a Celica T-Sport provided by Toyota Germany. It was built with many high-quality parts, such as a complete APR GT300 widebody kit, with the exception of a Wings West TRD replica wing, APR carbon mirrors, a Blitz Nurspec exhaust, Defi gauges, Alpine touchscreen head unit, multiple screens by TME, 2 Xbox game consoles, 19-inch BVS GT2 wheels, a 1500 watt sound system, and more. GTN Tuning was responsible for building the car, for which they had 4 weeks of time to finish the Celica. The craziest part of the story is that they convinced APR to ship them the kit as fast as possible. Their usual delivery time was around 10 weeks, which they negotiated down to just 10 days. Acclaim was already dead set on the APR kit, so an alternative wouldn't have ever been considered. Another interesting thing is that they planned to supercharge it as well, but due to the time constraint, they instead set on a TRD flywheel and clutch kit, engine cold air intake, and an APR tower bar. They also wanted to use the APR GT300 wing, however the reason they decided against it is easily the most important part about the entire car. The car was built to pass German inspections. Why is that important? To dumb it down, if you ever want to do some crazy shit with your car over here, you better know the laws. Everything needs paperwork or some sort of test mark to validate roadworthiness. The car was won by Dominik Hoffmann from Austria, who won the finale with a lead of 3.5 seconds. He was one of probably thousands and thousands of people that took part in the Juice Challenge. The Celica had seen a couple of smaller changes, such as all of the decals getting removed, the mirrors and taillights being changed, and the exhaust being replaced. But all in all, the car is still for the most part identical to when it was first given away in 2005. I don't know if he still owns the car or not, as I remember a import shop in Austria showing the car in a post once, but I can't find out who it was anymore. The last car I'll talk about, similarly to the Genki S2000, has very little information to work with. Do you remember Modellista? The cover car was a blue RX-7 on the Japanese version, and you were able to win that car in a giveaway by Capcom. The car was created before the game's release, and according to the game's guidebook, can be identically recreated inside the game. The real RX-7 has also appeared at Suzuka Circuit in 2002 at the Poca 1000 km Super GT finale. How did you enter the giveaway? You were supposed to answer a quiz and then get entered into a lottery to be given a chance to win the RX-7. The giveaway was held from August 1st until September 30th, 2002, and you were only allowed to enter if you were residing in Japan, be at least 20 years old, and have a valid driver's license. While it is unknown where the car is today, there is a basic spec list of it. This RX-7 was basically a lightly modified car with a Mazdaspeed GT concept body kit and Mazdaspeed interior package. The engine was stock, however an RSR X-Mag GT2 exhaust was installed. An endless 6-piston brake kit was installed as well, which are stopping the Gramlights 57F wheels wrapped in Potenza RE01 tires. Combined with a Tane damper kit, you got yourself a great base car to work with, so it wouldn't surprise me if the car was modified further. I'm not a big fan of doing outros, but since I've been working on this video for several months, which include very stressful amounts of researching certain cars, translating articles, and talking to a lot of my friends if they can help me out, I want to thank everybody involved for their efforts in providing me with their thoughts and resources.